everyone, and welcome to this episode of our LLE podcast. My name is Sarah, and I'm very excited to announce today's guest, the Campus Academy Director, Dr. Gil Barter. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Not a problem, man. Anytime.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. It's a Friday. Always a good day to do these sort of things, and always a good day of the week.
Right, and so I want to ask you about your role as Campus Academy Director and how it contributes to the student learning experience.
So, my role as academic director is that I oversee all of the programs. So, from a student perspective, every single module, every single session, I oversee. And in terms of their experience, I want to make sure that the teaching and learning part of their experience is of the quality that they expect when they come and join us. And then it meets the standards that are required as being part of the global MDX community at the university.
Interesting. And could you walk us through the journey to MDX Mauritius?
So my journey from MDX Mauritius is a long one. I've been with Middlesex in general since 2009, 2009. So a long time, a very, very long time, approaching sort of 15, 16 years. And then that was mainly based in Hendon. I've worked with Hendon for a majority, and I've worked a bit with Dubai campus as well. But then the opportunity came along to come and work here at this campus, the Mauritius campus, just over a year ago now. So yeah, I thought, why not, and explore and gather some new information. Always learning, develop myself professionally. Then come and experience the one campus in our collection that I haven't seen. So yes, that's me from how I came from being London to here.
Based on the fact that you joined as a year ago, what makes Middlesex University Mauritius different from the Middlesex Global Network?
So I mean, there's some good similarities. You still have the British education, you have the British degree, it's quality assured by the UK. But in terms of this campus, for number one, it's sunny every day. It's a pretty big win. But no, I think it's if you walk across the three main campuses at Middlesex, they all have a unique feel. This campus is it's succinct. It's a small but well-defined campus. It's growing. It has some wonderful facilities. It has a flavour of London in there with some of the names of the building, which are the old campuses from London. And it has some remnants of the globality in terms of references to Dubai and the rest, but it still has that Mauritian context. It still has the views. The culture is a lot more embracing and open in terms of both religious and country background. So yeah, I would suggest that it's more fluid, approachable, friendly than the other campuses. So yeah, and it's also sun-kissed throughout every single day, every single week. So that helps.
I really love this about the Mauritius campus because you get the beach a
Yeah.
few kilometers away, and
Exactly.
it's a really huge plus for students. And I really do feel like the campus, it's the balance between, of course, you have the really nice facilities and the top-notch technology, but also it's balanced with the trees, the beach, and
Yeah.
a lot of nature. I love that. And
100%.
so in terms of, let's focus on the higher education side of MDX, and I want to know how you see higher education evolving over the next few years and how Middlesex will adapt to that.
So I think higher education is it's in a different space at the moment than it was maybe even a couple of years ago, but certainly sort of 5, 10 years ago. I think it's in certain regions, certain countries, it's becoming very politicalized. So if you look what's happening in the US in terms of the using higher education as a means to restrict immigration into the country. If you look at the UK, the big onset with higher education is in terms of cost cutting because the sector is to be blunt, short of income, and the numbers of students going to higher education is dwindling. And the government would like more of a broader approach to that level of qualification. And if you look around, the same in Australia, there's resource cutting around there as well. So in terms of the three main dominant areas, it affects the higher education context. One of our main competitors here, but for us as a campus, I think we are in some ways isolated from that slightly. We're also trying to buy into the Mauritian way and develop to become a study destination, a study hub for the area. Um, and therefore, we expanded our international recruitment, expanded our offer for to be open to more transnational students coming across, which is something the government agenda wants to do as well. So I think that's us as a campus. How do we adapt? I think we're sure we'll come on to talk about AI coming on later on, so I'll leave that for another day. But I think you've always got to make sure that what you offer in terms of a program is relevant for the market that it's in, is relevant for the students, and that they can seek employability. And I think that's something that is becoming, we do very well here on campus. Our employability rate is over 99%. So that shows you that we are continually in touch with the market and employers to ensure that what we provide is relevant for our students. And I would imagine we will continue to do so. I'm confident we'll continue to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And beyond just programs, Middlesex offers a variety of support services through the library and learning enhancement team. And these include academic support through student learning assistance, library support through LLE ambassadors, and sometimes also bridging the gap between student and staff by gathering feedback through student voice leaders. So these are just some examples, but I want to know how you see the role of the LLE as and how it contributes to student learning.
I think it's a very important role. I was there for the sort of the inset of it at Hendon, where the idea of having this support space that enabled students to receive help and advice on how to effectively study where it's born from. Because of the way in which the government at the time were looking at participation, increasing participation in higher education. But with that can often lead to students coming to higher education that may or may not have previously done so because they weren't quite ready. So in order to help with that, you need to provide support as an institution on the basic level in terms of, the old-fashioned referencing. What is an assignment? I think in higher education, we sometimes operate in a bubble and say, can you critique that? And then we're not quite sure why people don't understand what you mean by that. So I think even if the NET takes a simplistic role in terms of just helping people understand what it means to critique, compare and contrast, reference, research, develop a rapport. What does this format mean? How to do this? What's this technique? I think that's a very important role, one that's underrated, one that will become and continue to become very important in the upcoming years as the government here has lowered the criteria for entry to higher education. So you could have a greater sense of the pool of support needed for those students. So yeah, I think it's arm in arm. It's not the subject matter, but it's the skills in which the student needs to complete their studies. I think it's the important point to weigh in. I think the NET play a good role in doing that.
And in terms, this is an additional support beyond just programs. And if we look at programs and teaching itself, how do you think Middlesex ensures that teaching methods remain engaging in the student?
So every single month, the academics here have a training session where we and even through between those points, there is developmental opportunities for staff to be engaged in understanding what the latest technological developments are, to understand the new technologies. I've just left the session to come here talking about how we can greatly use EdTech in our teaching. And we've done some great sessions on NoNet, which is a gaming type platform for gamification lessons. So I think all the time as a university, we are trying to make sure that our academics are engaged in CPD. They read and they understand and they develop their ideas about how they can enhance their sessions going forward to make them more engaging. So yeah, as a sector, I think it's one of the things we're good at. And as we try and position ourselves in the market here as being leaders in terms of quality, we have to also make sure that our teaching is innovative and uses the technology that's in this room, but also in other rooms to its maximum.
And that's very interesting. And speaking of innovation, um, do you think AI or digital transformation has changed how the university approaches teaching and assessments?
So I think the long and short, yeah, short answer, yes. Long answer, we could be here all day, but I think it's an interesting paradigm shift for a lot of institutions. So Middlesex as a brand, as a group of universities operate on a very what we call authentic assessment based. So we largely don't have exams unless they're regulated by a professional body. We do that because we believe that we're preparing students for real life examples. So you'll have a case study to work on, or you'll have a project, you'll have a data set to analyze in a time frame as you would do in the workplace, which is one of the reasons why traditionally all of the campuses, including this one, are really high employment. But caveat to that is that because it's not exam based, the argument can be made that there is an element you need to be wary of in terms of AI. So you need to look at how you design your assessment to enable it to be not AI proof, but you either accept that AI is going to be a future tool, and therefore you build that into the assessment and you assess the students on their skills, their knowledge, and not the AI, or you design you try and come up with an assessment where they can't use AI. So I think but in both instances, the clarity is needed to the students understand when they can and cannot use AI. But the position that we are taking in university is that AI is here to stay. There is no point in banning it because it will be part of the future workforce. It is already part of, anybody who works here at this university will tell you they use AI in some form. So that's the position we're taking. We need to train our students to understand how to use it ethically and in an appropriate way to make themselves more efficient at workplace, rather than the opposite view, which is we must ban AI, we must go back to exams, we must roll back the clock and do it this way. So I think the position we're taking is more progressive and embracing the future. Whilst there still be more 2D problems, there is still academic misconduct to be aware of. You still can't literally ask AI to do your work or not, but it's about citing it and understanding when you can and cannot do it rather than a position of you must not do it.
I think it is definitely a progressive step to embrace AI. And I have seen students definitely use AI in preparing for their coursework assignment reports, whatever it is that they have in their specific programs. But um, I agree with the idea that we have to help students build the skills to adapt to AI. And you mentioned the high employability rate of students. And beyond just adapting to AI, are there any other soft skills such as communication and teamwork that play a role in student success, both at university and beyond?
I think we are fortunate that we have a set of graduate competencies which are mapped to every single program. Two of the ones you mentioned there are part of that. You also have things like problem solving, being a critical thinker, um, communication, not just in the audio, but also in how the format that's relevant. Yeah, data analysis, those kind of elements are all skills, soft skills, the emotional understanding, the ability to show empathy are all elements that we try and build into a program so that when if it's a 3 year program, when the student leaves in year three, they have completed those set of competencies. So they go into the workplace and they're not just I must do this task. They are able to problem solve, understand, but equally work with others because they can show empathy, because they can show compassion, they can have an understanding, and they can also project manage from that from a point of view of saying, right, this is how I prioritize, this is how we get a timeline done. But that also feeds into our assessment design, which is again an authentic filter around what you can do in the workplace. So I think, yes, there are a variety of soft skills that we build into our programs. It might not be obvious when you're first studying them, and not every year will have them. But by the time you finish the final year, you would have hopefully had experienced all.
Yes, I agree. And it's true that students, when they start from first year, they don't see how the university is helping build these skills. So I'll take my program, for example. I studied law, and as a student planning assistant, I saw how the assessments were designing the students to be able to um, build the skills needed as legal practitioners or um, whatever legal career they would be in after. So, for example, let's say moving is an assessment. They would build advocacy skills. So they don't realize that the stress they feel prior to the assessment or the way that they are made to formulate arguments are really things that they're learning and that will help them perform better in the workplace. So when they're barristers, they just wonder how is this easy for them? But it's a step-by-step process that's started at university. It's really interesting to see the process. And in your experience, are there any specific competencies you would like to for students to learn to build when they start at university?
I think I've mentioned a couple already, but I think the one thing that stands the university out from other forms of post 16 education is for me to develop critical minds. We You should be leaving university with an ability to not just accept what is said to you. That doesn't mean that when the workplace you tell your boss that he's wrong with the rest of it, but it's your ability to interpret something and say, hang on a minute, are there other sources? Can I go and find information to back that viewpoint up? And I think that's a really important way that we as a university contribute to civic engagement, better citizens for the world. Because we we need to be as humans, we need to be as people engaged and understand, but not just accept what is told for us from the top. We haven't we should be part of those decisions, but we need to understand where the viewpoint is from. And I think that that ability to be critical and find sources and understand information, I think, is a key component of being a higher education student.
It's a really good compliment. I hadn't thought of that one, but it was such a mental. And um, we talked about how the Mauritian campus is the perfect place to be able to balance studying and uh, make the access to nature allows you to relax and also cut off completely from academics. And what advice would you have for students who do have a struggle between balancing studies, sometimes work, and relaxing being outside campus?
I think today's student is very different, certainly very different to when I studied a long, long time ago. Those days were fond memories. But I think now, yes, the modern student has two hats, sometimes three hats. There's the work, the study, and sometimes there is a family commitment as well. So um, that is a myriad of problems, not problems, but things to consider and how you go about formulating your life. But I think one of the skills you mentioned about being organized and sitting and planning is a key competence. But having those responsibilities starts building those skills up. And I think it's about not learning when you might becoming overwhelmed and seeking help to discuss those issues with, but also therefore from that learning to plan and organize your day to say, yes, I do need to have some downtime here. Absolutely fine. Why would you not when it's 25 degrees outside? There's a wonderful beach down there for sure. But because of your other responsibilities, you need to be responsible and say, right, this is the point. I need to go do this. It's do this, I need to do this, I need to hit my deadline. So at this time, I need to do this part. I think that's all part of that journey. And it's not going to be right day one. And I think it's managing those expectations to yourself that the goals you set to achieve that need to be very, very small. It might, so if you're struggling with typically doing an assignment, it's someone will set a goal of I'll do 1,000 words this day. Okay, how about we do a manageable goal to start off with, which is literally opening your laptop up and starting writing the title. Great, you've achieved your first goal. It's giving yourself little quick wins and then building that into an organizational position that you can then manage all the tasks you have. But I think one thing from that is stay organized, but also set yourself really easy, quick win goals, because no one wants to beat themselves up by setting unrealistic goals. Set yourselves easy achievable goals, multiple of them, in an organized framework, and you should hopefully be able to get through your years without feeling too overwhelmed and still have a good time, of course.
Definitely. So setting realistic goals.
Yeah.
And from hearing all that you've shared, I realized that there is a lot of wisdom that we could benefit from. And unfortunately, the question that I'm going to ask is if you could just give us one lesson that you've um, learned throughout your journey, whether it's your professional journey or academic journey, that students might find inspiring. If it's more than one.
Guys, tricky question, Ace. I think listening is really actively listening is really important for me. I think it's one thing to always respect and understand it. Any viewpoint is valid. And taking the time to understand that viewpoint. For me, I throughout my journey has often reduced frustration. I've understood situations better because I've just taken a little bit longer to listen a bit harder, try and understand why that person is presenting this viewpoint. So particularly when I look in the workplace, if you're when you're managing, sometimes you have conflict resolution, for example, and you can, oh, why have you got this view and you've got this view? But if you just took that opportunity to really understand where they're coming from, what is that emotional intelligence, that other graduate competency that we work on, try and understand where they're coming from, what is driving that viewpoint versus the other, then you often can formulate a more rounded response. The other thing I would say, I think I'm trying to keep up, but I'll do too, is don't have to run 100 billion miles an hour. Taking time to have a breath, to live, to enjoy the experience is fine. Breathe is often something I say to colleagues now in a high stress situation. It's just breathe, and then we'll do something. And that's the same with anything. If you're feeling about your work, just take a breath. Just take a 30 seconds, and then we'll come back to it. Take a little moment, just pause, bring yourself down a little bit. Will help you clarify your mind and move forward.
Thank you so much. And so after listening and taking notes, and my last question is if you could describe the Middlesex experience in 3 words, what would they be?
Multicultural, uplifting, enjoyable. There you go.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for everything that you shared with us. As I mentioned, it's been full of wisdom, and there's a lot that students will benefit from. And we're really, really happy to agree to be with us. We're just really grateful. Thank you.
Not a problem. Anytime. Thank you.
To you guys, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment anything that resonated with you from this video. And we'd like to say a huge thank you to Dr. Phil for agreeing to be with us on this podcast and for sharing all of his wisdom. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.